Salvete omnes. This is Gai Iuli Caesaris Commentarii de Bello Gallico Liber Primus, chapter 52. And Caesar writes, Caesar singulis legionibus, singulos legatos et quaestorem praefecit, uti eos testes suae quisque virtutis haberet. Caesar, nominative singular masculine. First word in the chapter where he likes to be. Singulis modifies legionibus. Singulis comes from singuli a. Funnily enough, it is always plural in classical Latin. Only shows up it will show up in the singular in anti-classical or post-classical Latin. It's just classical Latin says no, this word, which means each thing. You can see single in there. Must be plural, right? Okay, sure. It modifies legionibus, so it is going to be dative or ablative, plural, and it's going to be feminine, because legio, legionis, it's always feminine. Legion, so a single legion. I know it's plural, but we're going to translate in English singular. Singulos, same word as singulis, only singulos is accusative, plural and masculine, to modify the noun legatos, which is accusative plural masculine as well, from legatus e masculine. Lieutenant, envoy, deputy, it's someone that is lego, legere, legi, lectus, picked out, chosen out. Et, and a quaestorem, from quaestor, quaestoris masculine. It's a quaestor or a quartermaster, an elected official or treasurer. Someone who works with the finances. So Caesar has 4 legati, 4 little Sith apprentices, and he's got a quaestor, a quartermaster, and he sort of deputized the quaestor, the quartermaster, to the rank of a legatus because he praefecit. Praeficio, praeficere, praefeci, praefectus. It's praefacio. So it's a compounded verb, and compounded verbs often take the dative. It actually takes an accusative, an accusative and a dative. So Caesar praefecit, he, facio, made, prae, in front or in charge. He made an accusative in charge of a dative. So this verb takes an accusative and a dative. Caesar, perfect tense, third person singular, perfect active indicative, made a single lieutenant and a quaestor in charge of each legion. Caesar made a lieutenant, a legatus, and his quaestor, or a quaestor, in charge of singulis legionibus dative, each legion, because he's got 5 of them, 4 legati, and then the quaestor takes command of the 5th legion. Caesar is the imperator, the supreme allied commander of this exercitus, this army composed of 5 legions, but he has deputized the lieutenants to act as if they were him. Why did he do such a thing? Uti, older archaic form of ut, so that this is going to be a purpose clause, so this is a telic conjunction. Ooh, fancy. So telic as in shows the telos end, so purpose, a purpose clause, a purpose conjunction, a telic conjunction. Eos testes, isea id, and testis masculine, a witness. Suae modifies virtutis, so quisque is the nominative singular subject, quisque, quidque. It's not and who, it's quis, and the que adds a sense of each one. So it's who each, or just each person. And we're going to assume it's masculine because it's dudes fighting in a battle. So each man, uti, quisque, and then haberet, so that each man might haberet, third person singular imperfect active indicative of habeo, habere, habui, habitus, to have, possess. So habret, so each man might have, we're in secondary sequence because of this praefecit, perfect tense. So imperfect subjunctive, might have eos testes. Eos refers back to the legatos and the quaestorem. Them as a testes, as witnesses, as a witness, each one as a witness. Of what? Of sui, his own, and then virtutis. And the sui, right next to the quisque, probably to emphasize that you should be able to circle the su and draw an arrow to the subject, and it's right there. To emphasize that quisque is the subject, sui is referring to quisque, it's modifying virtutis. Sui is genitive, singular, feminine. It's limiting testis. So witnesses of what? Witnesses of his own, because it's quisque is the subject, of his own valor, manliness. Caesar put in command of each legion a legatus, a deputy, a lieutenant, we wouldn't say envoy here, and a quaestor, a quartermaster, so that each miles, each soldier, each man, each vir, might have them as witnesses of his own manliness, of his own strength, his own valor, his own virness, how he's going to fight. So that at the end of the battle, the staff, Caesar's staff, these legati and this quaestor, they can report to Caesar. If Caesar should ask, who fought bravely in the battle today? And they can say, well, I took note of this man, this soldier did this, and this man did this, and etc. And perhaps there's a chance to be called out and praised, perhaps even rewarded. Ipse ad dextra cornu, quod eam partem minime firmam hostium, and this is hostium esse animadverterat, proelium commissit. So ipse, the intensive emphatic pronoun, he himself, the very man, refers back to Caesar. So that's what's going on with the lieutenants and everything, quaestor and each soldier, while he himself, in the meantime, ab, preposition, from, away from, or by, with cornu, ab with cornu in military commentaries and battle scenes, usually means for the Romans location. I know it's ablative of separation, and you can translate it that way. He himself from the dextro cornu, the right wing, as opposed to the sinister cornu, or sinistrum cornu, the left wing. He himself from the right wing, which is the place of honor. You could even translate as he himself at the right wing, or from, probably from the right wing is the best way to say it. What I'm saying is that you can translate this as location. Quod, which, or maybe because, don't know, the antecedent of quod could be the neuter cornu. Both are singular. Or it could be quod causal because. Let's wait and find out. Eam is id, modifies partem, pars partis feminine, part. Eam partem accusative singular feminine, that part. Minime, this is the superlative adverbial form of parvusaum, small. The comparative is minor, minoris, and the neuter being minus, minoris. Superlative is minimus aum, and that means the smallest, smallest, very small, most small. As an adverb, minimus becomes minime. So, running through those adverbs, parum, that would be less, and then minus, lesser, and then minime, least. So least, adverbs modify verbs adjectives, and other adverbs. Here it's probably modifying this adjective firmam. So firmam, accusative singular masculine, goes with, or I'm sorry, accusative singular feminine, goes with the accusative singular feminine partem. That part, least, firmam, firm, strong. Hostium, the genitive plural masculine, genitive of possession, that part of the enemy, esse, was least strong. And the superlative, the least strong. Or we could also put minime firmam together to say the weakest. Animadverterat, from animadverto, that means to, literally, animus adverto, to turn your animus, your mind, your thought, your attention, to take notice of something, to notice. You could even say to realize. This is our main verb here, and it's so this is probably going to be a causal clause, quod meaning because. You could also translate as or since. Because animadvertat, he had turned his thought, turned his mind, he had taken attention, he had noticed, realized that indirect statement, and that explains the preceding, where we had an accusative subject, eam partem, and then infinitive esse. What thing, this whole big long substantive thingy, this whole clause acting as one big long noun, that's the direct object of animadverterat. He had noticed that part, which part? The part facing the right wing of his own army. He himself, because he himself, you could say, took up position at the right wing because he had noticed that part of the enemy was the weakest. So he was going to take that on himself. That one's mine. Proelium commissit. And that is proelium, the direct object of commissit, commito, committere, commissi, commissus. Idiom to join battle, to send battle together. It's the point where the two armies rush across the field, and then crash in the center. Proelium commissit, he commenced battle. Ita nos reacriter in hostes signodato, impetum fecerunt, itaque hostes repente celeriterque procurerunt, ut spatium pilla in hostes coiciendi non daretur. So ita, thus, in such a way, nosri, our dudes, nominative plural masculine, our men. Acriter, this is the positive adverbial form of acer, acris, acre, which is harsh, bitter, fierce. So the positive adverbial form, you take the stem acer and add iter, and you get acriter, fiercely, harshly, bitterly. Our men fiercely. What did our men fiercely do? In, preposition taking the accusative, showing motion towards, in hostes, into the enemy or upon the enemy. Signo dato, nice ablative absolute here, with the noun participle, signum e neuter, sign, signal, military standard. Dato, from do dare dedi datus, to give. So with the sign, the signal, having been given, after giving the sign, after he had given the signal. And so, after he had given the signal, our men fiercely upon the enemy, impetum fecerunt. Impetum, from impetus us masculine, that's an impetus. Yeah, an impetum. Impetus us masculine. So an impetus, an attack. It's a quick motion forward. Think peto, petere, petivi, petitus. Quick motion forward, in, towards. Quick motion in, upon. That's an impetus. It's like a rush. Here it's an attack or an assault. Fecerunt, they facio facere feci factus, to make, to do. So somewhat of an idiom here, although you can translate it literally. They made an attack. Takes in or odd plus the accusative upon the enemy, usually in. So they made an attack, they made an assault, they assaulted, they attacked. You can just go ahead and keep it the roundabout way. Translate it literally, it's fine. It's okay. How often do you get to do that? Thus, our men fiercely made an assault upon the enemy with the signal having been given. After he had given the signal. After giving the signal. Itaque, this is and thus. It's actually going to be and so, and then it's going to modify repente and celeriter, because that's then going to kick us into this ut, this result clause. Up here, this uti, purpose clause, this was a telic conjunction, introducing a telic clause or a purpose clause showing purpose or the end. We know this as an adverbial purpose clause. Here, this ut is introducing a result clause. And we can use the fancy term of this is an ekbatic conjunction, And so repente did the hostes. So the hostes are the subject here of the verb procurrerunt. Repente, adverb, modifying procurrerunt. Celeriter, modifying procurrerunt, because both are adverbs, joined by the enclitic conjunction que. So the enemy, what they do, they suddenly and quickly, and then ita modifies them both. And so suddenly and so quickly, procurrerunt hostes, did the enemy rush forth. It's procuro, to rush forth. With the result that, how quickly was it? With the result that ut, spatium pila in hostes coeciendi non daretur. With the result that a spatium, spati neuter, a space, we get the word spatial. It can be either space, spatially, or temporally used. So it can refer to a span of time, a space of time, or a physical space. They're kind of the same, space-time. So it's the subject here, going with the verb daretur, modified by the adverb non. So the spatium, a space, or we could even say distance. The distance. You could also translate it temporally, so it's a synonym for tempus. You could say time. Time, non daretur, was not given. The distance was not given. It was not allowed to. Pila coeciendi in hostes. Now here, Caesar kind of breaks a grammar rule, or at least what should be a well-established, well-founded, and well-cited and searched grammar rule. But here it is. Here's a little oopsie. We have pila as the accusative plural neuter, pilum e neuter, direct object of what's this? Is that a gerund? Coicio, coicere, coieci, conjectus? To yeet? To hurl? To cast? To conjaccio? To throw with force? But that's a gnarly ND thingy. Undi. I don't see anything else it could agree with because, if it has an object, it should be a gerundive. Because a gerundive is a verbal adjective, and if it has a noun, it has an object, and it has to agree with that noun, and it's just what adjectives do. But no! That's right, I just broke my little ships. This rule is sometimes abused, sometimes broken, indeed. Sometimes you do find authors who every now and again, in a little slip up, a lapsus stili, they will have a gerund take an accusative direct object. It's terrible, I know, but you know what? I'm just going to have to deal with it. Sorry. So a spatium, a space, span, a distance, time, was not given of a space of time of hurling their javelins upon the enemy was not given. So the time for hurling the javelins at the enemy was not given. That was the result of the enemy running ita repente celeriterque, so suddenly and so quickly. Yeah, they broke out into a run. They rushed forth. They Zerg rushed them, with the result that the time for throwing the javelins upon the enemy was not given. They didn't have time to soften up the Germans before the fight by throwing the pila. Well, boys, I guess we gotta turn to the gladii. Relictis pilis, comminus gladiis pugnatum est. Every now and again, you'll get a rather shortish sentence in one of these battle scenes that kind of punctuates that, and now the battle has begun. And thus battle began. We saw this before in the fight at Bibracte against the Helvetians, and where we had pugnatum est. We similarly used a third-person singular impersonal passive form here. So relictis pilis, relinquo, relinquere, reliqui, relictus, to abandon, relinquish, leave behind. So something's getting left behind. The pilis. Pila me neuter, the javelins, the pila. So ablative plural neuter, this is an ablative absolute, with the noun participle, with the javelins having been left behind. Having abandoned the javelins, the ablative absolute is Latin's way of making up for not having a regular perfect active participle. Go ahead and use it that way as much as you want. Just do it right. Having abandoned the javelins, having cast the javelins aside, because you can't use them now. You wouldn't use it as a speary weapon anyway. It's good for throwing, and it's designed to bend and break at impact. So not really a good weapon to use if the enemy's about to bull rush you. So comminus, when we're cum manus, hand to hand. Gladiis, hand to hand with swords. Now it's time to turn to the sword. Gladiis, ablative of means. Pugnatum est, it was fought. It was once the javelins were abandoned, having cast the javelins aside, it was fought hand to hand with swords. At Germani, celeriter ex consuetudine, sua phalange facta, impetus gladiorum exceperunt. Ought is souped up said, S-E-D. It's but, with one T. Now that I have your attention, though. But the Germans, the Germani, nominative plural masculine, celeriter. This is the, like up here, they're doing things quickly. Positive adverb form of celer, celeres, celere. Quick is the adjective, quickly is the adverb, celeriter. Quickly, but quickly, the Germans, ex consuetudine. This ex plus this ablative consuetudine from consuetudo, which think consuesco, a custom. This is their custom. This is their habit, consuetudo. Ex consuetudine, this ex plus this ablative is an ablative of accordance, and we're going to translate it with the English word according to, because it's the ablative of accordance, and that's how you translate the ablative of accordance, as according to, because that's what it's called. According to their custom, according to their habit, according to what they're used to doing, consuetudo, from the noun form of consuesco. But the Germans, quickly, according to their custom, sua palanga facta. Sua saum, their own, agrees with, hey, that ain't no Latin word. Yep, it's got a PH. That's a Greek word. Palanga, a phalanx, palangos, a phalanx, an interlocking of shields. We've seen this word before in the battle with the Helvetians at Bibracte. Good to see you again, phalange. And this is the ablative singular feminine. And it goes with facta, from facio, facere, feci, factus. Perfect passive participle. Having been made. And if you squint really hard and turn your head slightly to the right, you can see that there's a macron there, totally. As well as a macron over the A in sua. So sua phalange facta, with their own phalange, their phalanx, facta, having been made. With their own phalanx. So the Germans make their own phalanx, according to their custom, and they do so with haste, quickly, celeriter. But the Germans, according to their custom, quickly form a phalanx for themselves. With their own phalanx having been formed, according to their custom, impetus gladiorum excaperunt. So impetus, also there's a macron right there. I know you can see it right there. Impetus is masculine, an attack and assault. Gladiorum, of the swords, genitive plural. An attack of the swords attacks, assaults. Excaperunt, excipio. They, it's kind of like they took out, excapio. They took out, they received. It's rather a synonym for accipio. It's almost like they caught excipio. So they caught the attacks of the swords. They received the blows of the swords. So forming their phalanx. But the Germans, according to their custom, quickly formed a phalanx and received the attacks of the swords. But the Germans, with a phalanx having been formed, quickly, according to their custom, received the attacks of the swords. Well, normally we would throw our pila, and then that would kind of get rid of a lot of your shields. But you didn't let us do that this battle, so oh no, what are we going to do? Reperti sunt complores nostri, qui in phalanga insilierent, et scuta manibus revelerent, et de super vulnerarent. So reperti sunt, reperio, to find. Reperti sunt is third person plural, perfect passive indicative. They were found. Some masculine plural things were found. Who was found? Complores, not just plures. That would be quite a few. That would be the comparative of multus, not just many, but quite more. More, quite a lot. Complores, very quite a lot. Or we could just say very many, or several. It's more than several, though. This is going to be like, lots. Nostri, referring to nos dea nostra nostrum, referring to our dudes. So very many of our soldiers, reperti sunt, were found. Qui, the antecedent, complores nostri, both are plural and masculine. Qui is nominative, as well as complores nostri. Who, relative clause, relative pronoun, in plus the accusative, into or upon to the phalanx, phalanga. That is the accusative. It is a Greek accusative of phalanx. Phalanx, phalangos, feminine. In Greek, that is going to be got the definite article he. So this is the accusative form. In phalanga, upon the phalanx. Insilierent, third person plural, imperfect subjunctive, because we're in secondary sequence. Thank you, perfect tense right here. We have qui plus the subjunctive. Why were very many of our men found? Well, They got to be the ones to jump upon the shield wall, upon the phalanx, like Jet Li or something, et scuta manibus revelerent, and to scuta, a scutum e neuter is a shield. Remember, a shield wall is made up of shields. Manibus, manos us feminine, fourth declension feminine, manibus, ablative of means, with hands, by means of hands, and to rewello, rewellere, third person plural imperfect active subjunctive, and to not just jump up in silio, jump up upon the shield wall. It's a little Roman ninja. And they also rewello, they pull back, they tear, wello, to tear back, tear away. It's a rather violent action. One of the roots of vulture is wello, a plucker. They pluck back. So think of a vulture or a bird pecking at entrails, and that's sort of, but it's a violent action, right? So we're pulling back the scuta, the shields, direct object scuta, with their hands. Very many of our men were found in order to jump up upon the shield wall, rip back the shields with their hands, at de super, it's super above, but also de down from, and from above, from on top, vulnerare, third person plural imperfect active subjunctive of vulnero, to wound. So we need to find some dudes, some little Roman ninja, who are going to jump up upon the shield wall. They're going to tear back the shields of the Germans with their hands, and by means of their hands. The Romans are going to use their hands to pull back the shields of the Germans, and then to wound them from above. Sweet. Cum hostium acies sinistro cornu pulsa atque in fugam conjecta esset, ad dextra cornu vehementer multitudine suorum nostrum aciam premebant. Oh no. Cum, when since although, takes a subjunctive, conjecta esset, so pluperfect subjunctive, we are in secondary sequence. Hostium, genitive plural masculine, hostis, hostis masculine, it's a third declension I stem. So genitive plural masculine, genitive of possession of acies, acies a feminine, battle line. So it's the battle line of the enemy, the enemy's battle line, the enemy battle line. Where is it? Where are we? On the sinistro cornu. So the sinistrum cornu is the left wing, as opposed to the dextrum cornu, it's also down here, the right wing. Left wing and right wing. So we are at the left wing. So the enemy battle line on the left wing, pulsa, pello, pellere, puli, pulsus. They were beaten. You are beaten. It's useless to resist. So pulsa goes with acies, having been beaten. You could say routed. They were routed. Been beat. We still don't know if it's when since although yet. It's going to be although. Pulsa, atque is the alternative form of ac. It's ac if the next word starts with a consonant. It's atque if the next word starts with a vowel. In starts with a vowel, I. In plus the accusative, motion towards, into flight. Fly, you fools. Into escape, to flee. Conjecta essent, and it's cum yacio. So to yeet, to hurl. They have been hurled, third person singular, the battle line of the enemy. Have been yeeted into flight, had been hurled into flight, cast into flight after, first it had been pulsa, because this is the perfect passive participle. It was routed. Actually, no, it's not. It's pulsa esset, and it's conjecta esset. We wouldn't need the aquae if this were just a participle. We would just have pulsa. They were first pulsa, and then they were conjecta. So, when since although, the enemy's battle line on the left wing So the enemy's left line had been routed and hurled into flight, cast into flight. Dextro cornu. So what's going on the right wing? That's what the left wing's doing, getting beat, getting yeeted. What's the right wing doing? Dextro cornu vehementer. Adverb, vehemens. It's an intensifier. Something is being done with energy, force, vigorously. Vehementer can be violently, it can be angrily, vehemently. Something is done with force. Something is done with passion or ardor. Multitudine. Multitudo, multitudinous feminine. Great number. Great host, you say. Ablative, singular feminine. Ablative means by means of the great number of what? Of suorum. Of whatever the subject is. You're going to circle the su and draw an arrow to the subject. It's going to be the third person plural they. The orum part of suorum, the genitive plural, goes with, oh wait, it's a substantive, of their own. By means of the great number of their own troops, forces. Nostram aciem, noster, nostra, nostrum, our, acies, a feminine, our aciem, our battle line, premebant, third person plural, imperfect, active, indicative. Prema, premere, pressi, pressus, to overwhelm. So they were prema, pressing, overwhelming. And now that the entire picture is painted, this is although. Although the battle line of the enemy on the left wing had been, and remember this is pluperfect subjunctive, and that should be pulsa esset as well, it's just through ellipsis, omitted. Although the battle line of the enemy on the left wing had been routed and cast into flight. Yet on the right wing, they, you could also put in the enemy if you want, it's kind of implied, they were overwhelming, pressing, you could even say they were vehemently pressing our battle line by means of the great number of their own, by means of the great number of their troops. Id cum animad vertisset Publius Crassus adolescens, qui equitatui praerat, quod expeditior erat quam qui inter aciem versabantur, tertiam aciem laborantibus nostris subsidio misit. Id, it, refers to the previous thing, this thing. And it's the direct object of animad vertisset. So this thing, cum, when sense although. It's probably going to be when. Temporal. Showing time. Going with animad vertisset. Pluperfect, active, third person singular subjunctive, animad verto. So there it was up here. To turn your attention, your thought, your mind. So he turned his attention, thought, mind. He noticed, he realized. Who did? This dude, Publius Crassus. Yes, Publius Crassus. This is the son of the triumvir, Caesar's devilish partner in crime, Marcus Licinius Crassus, one of the richest men who ever lived. Yes, he's not dead yet. That guy will die in 53 BC. Remember, this is 58 BC. This is the son of the triumvir. He is an adolescens. So a note about Rome, how the Romans divvied up your ages. So boy is born. He's a babby. He's then a puer up until he becomes a man at age 15, 16. And then as vir, that is divided up between juvenis, which means young. I'm sorry, that is adolescens. Adolescens is next. So it goes puer, and then puer becomes vir. Vir is divided up as adolescens. So that's the early part of your manhood. That goes up to whatever is considered prime of life. I think that's kind of relative. After prime of life, scare quotes, Dr. Evil, prime of life, whatever that is then called a juvenus, young. And a man is considered juvenus, young, until he is no longer able to bear arms as an elderly man, a senex. So Publius Crassus is in that manhood, 15, 16, to prime of life stage. He's probably in his early 20s. I don't remember his age, but he is an adolescens. So I know we see the English word adolescent, but he is not an adolescent really by the way we think of an adolescent. He's older. He's in his 20s, presumably. So temporal cum. When Publius Crassus had noticed this thing, and he's a youth, when young Publius Crassus had noticed this, oh yes, that's young Publius Crassus, a fine young man, qui equitatui praerat, yes, he's the son of one of my evil partners in crime, qui refers back to Publius Crassus. Both are singular and masculine because it's a relative pronoun. And Publius Crassus is nominative, and qui happens to be nominative. Equitatui is dative of equitatus was masculine, refers to the horse, as in the cavalry corps as a whole. And then praerat is prae sum, prae esse, prae fui, prae futurus. So you can see it's prae and sum. And nice little symmetry here. We have prae fecit, prae facio, which took an accusative and then a dative. You make an accusative in charge of a dative. Here you have to be in charge of a dative, because compound verbs often take the dative. And this is a compound verb. Who was Publius Crassus, this fine young man? He was qui equitatui praerat, who was in command of the cavalry. So he was in charge of the cavalry corps. When young Publius Crassus noticed this thing, as he was head of the cavalry corps, Publius Crassus, who was when young Publius Crassus, who was head of the cavalry corps, noticed this thing, quod, how did he notice this thing? Why? For what reason? Quod, because expeditior. We had expeditious before, where it means flightier, more free. You're not as footed, as in you're not as impeded. There are no impediments about. You're expedit. So these guys are flighty. Here, Publius Crassus is described as expeditior. He's on a horse, so he has a little bit more range of movement. He's also taller, so we could say less impeded. He is less impeded, this erat he was, because he was less impeded quam than. We have a comparative here, so we should expect some sort of comparison. We're using quam plus whatever. You're comparing thing X with thing Y. Because he, Publius Crassus, thing X, nominative singular masculine, that makes thing Y the same case. It's got to be nominative. E, as those nominative plural masculine, those dudes. We could have omitted the quam and put E into the ablative to achieve the same effect. Eis. Quod expeditior erat eis, or eis would be the same thing. You can use quam for comparison in any situation, but if thing X is genitive, dative, or ablative, you cannot use the ablative of comparison. You must use quam, and then the same case as thing X. It's just a rule. Because he was less impeded, he was less hindered, he was more free than those who? Oh, those guys. Who? He answers our question. Who are those guys? Who antecedent is E, inter aciem, between or among the battle line, in the midst of the battle, versabantur, they, versa, versari, that's to be engaged in, embroiled in. So if you're engaged in a battle, you're probably fighting. Who were engaged in the battle line. Tertiam aciem, this is the third battle line. Laborantibus nostris, this is a present active participle. Laboro, laborare, laboravi, laboratus. Here it's going to mean toiling. And we do know laboro, to work, to suffer, to be hard pressed. Just go ahead and translate as be hard pressed or toiling. Or goes with nostris. Both are going to be dative, plural. Why dative? I don't know. Subsidio, from subsidium, E, neuter. So subsidy, help, aid. Dative, dative singular. Wonder what that could be. Wait, datives in a row. A double dragon? No, double dative. A dative of purpose, subsidio, for the purpose of being an aid, a help, to a dative of reference, to our men, laborantibus, toiling, to be in distress, suffering. Our men probably in distress. Our third battle line, and that's misit, the direct object, tertiam aciem, direct object of misit. So all together, when, subordinate temporal clause introduced by Kuhn, when young Publius Crassus, who was in charge of the cavalry, had noticed this thing that, because he was less impeded than those who were engaged in the battle line, misit sent the third battle line as a help, as an aid to our men in distress, to our men in trouble. So when Crassus on his horse noticed that, okay, sure, although the battle line of the enemy on the third wing, on the left wing, the battle line of the enemy on the left wing had been routed and thrown into flight, yet on the right wing, well, they're pressing, they're vigorously, they're furiously, vehemently pressing our battle line by the great number of their men. Well, once Publius Crassus noticed that, who is that guy? Oh, he's a young man. Fine young man in command of the cavalry. How did he notice that? Well, he was less impeded than those who were engaged in the battle line. Well, what did he do? Well, he sent the third battle line, usually held in reserve, dative of purpose, as an aid, for the purpose of being an aid to our men in trouble, in distress.